Welcome to another wrestling podcast, and today with us is a legendary referee, performer, manager, and the man who calls it right down the middle. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Bill Alfonso.
Oh, thanks, Daddy, for the super introduction, Daddy. Hey, the people call me a legend, but one thing for sure, I'm a legend in my own mind.
How did you get your beginning in the business? Were you a fan starting out, or did you just kind of happen upon wrestling one day?
My friend, my dad was one of his friends was a sports editor, and I live in Tampa. I was born and raised in Tampa, so Tampa was a real hotbed for wrestling when I was growing up, but I didn't know that. So my dad went to lunch with the sports editor, and the sports editor, Frank Klein, he used to write the results of wrestling, Tuesday Night Wrestling, in the paper Wednesday morning. And they used to comp them a couple of tickets for the Tuesday night event. So my dad came home after having lunch with them, and he said, "Hey, Billy, I got tickets to wrestling my friend Frank Klein gave to me." I said, "Wrestling? What the heck is that?" Never heard of it. I guess I was about 12 years old, 13 maybe. And so I said, "I'm not interested. I've never seen it on TV. I've never watched it. I'm not familiar with it at all." So they sat on the fireplace all weekend. And finally, curiosity got me. I said, "Well, let me take my buddy. We're going to go see what this is all about." My first night at wrestling, I fell in love with it. There was Bobby Shane, Eddie Graham, the Great Malenko, Bobo Brazil, guys like that. And I said, "Damn, love it. That's what I wanted to do." But I grew up to be 155. Oh, and I went from the age of 12 or 13 till 17 or 18. And I met a bunch of guys, Rocky Johnson, King Curtis, Don Morocco. I met all these guys. And I was dying to get into wrestling, but I was way too small. I was like a $155 soaking wet. And they said, "Hey, Fonzie, you're going to make a great referee one day because you love the business. You're small. You're going to make us look big." And that's how I got started. And then Rocky Johnson and King Curtis got me booked in Dallas, Texas. And I went out there for the Von Erichs, for Kelly Blanchard's dad, Joe Blanchard, the Funks in Amarillo, and Paul Bosch in Houston. So I worked for those guys, but small. I worked for them a few times out there 6 months, but they already had David Manning, Bronco Lubitsch, and a few other referees. So it was really hard for me to get a full-time job. I think out of the 6 months, I might have worked 5 or 6 shows. And I said, "Well, let me just go home because this isn't working out." And when I was leaving, Paul Jones, who just recently passed away a year or two ago, he said, "Hey, Fonzie, I heard you're leaving. You can't get work. There's all the referees here, so we can't use you." But he said, "Dusty's the booker in Florida, and Jerry Briscoe is the assistant booker." He says, "When you go home, go to the office and tell them that I sent you and that you worked, for Joe Blanchard, Paul Boss, the Von Erichs, and the Funks." And so I did that. And Jerry Briscoe said to me, he said, "Unfortunately, Bill Alfonso, we have our full-time referees, but leave your name with the guy downstairs, Charlie Lay, and if we can happen to use you maybe during the summer for some odd reason, we'll give you a call." I said, "Well, thank you very much." I was disappointed. And so this was on a Monday. Tuesday morning, they called me and they asked me, say, "Hey, can you come down and referee for us Tuesday night at the Fort Homer Hesterly Armory," which is a famous armory, Tuesday night. Dusty main event, the Assassins, there's so many names on the card. So I said, "Of course, thank you." What happened was, on Monday, they were in West Palm Beach wrestling, and the referee, who was working full-time for him, had the 3 top matches, the main event, the same-round main event, and the third top match. The referee had him in his car with no spare. Dusty fired him. They had to cancel the show and it was sold out. Dusty was so freaking mad, he fired the guy on the spot, which he should have. That's how I got to work Tuesday night. Then Wednesday night, Thursday night, Jacksonville. Wednesday, Miami. Thursday, Jacksonville. Friday was like Ocala, and it went on. And so Sunday came around, and Jerry Briscoe came up to me and says, "Hey, we want you to work for us full time." And since May of 1980, I've had a full-time job for over 20 years with all the major companies. Florida Championship Wrestling, which was a big company back in the time. Mid-Atlantic, or Jim Crockett. Then I went to Channel 17, the Superstation, before it was CBS. Then I worked for WCW. Then I went to Vince. Then obviously I ended up at ECW, which you guys know about. And now I'm semi-retired.
Well,
so that's how I got into wrestling.
That's an incredible story, and it sounds like not only were you ready to go, but also one of those right place, right time moments. As far as being a referee during that time, that's still kind of, when you were breaking in, it was still part of the territory system that we know about. So what were your thoughts on the territory system? Obviously, you're in one, sometimes you'd be in one city, the next time you'd be in another, as you mentioned. Like, does it take a special kind of person to be able to go through the territory system like that?
Yes, and you better be on your A game, because for referees, there's very limited jobs, and for wrestlers, there's very limited. Well, there was more places to go back then, because Florida was a territory, Georgia was a territory, Mid-Atlantic, the Carolinas, Texas was a territory, Kansas City was a territory, Oregon, California, all these different territories you can go to. The wrestlers could move around, going for 6 months or a year and work the territories, and all the territories would interact with each other, especially the NWA sanction, which was the big league. But up north, it was WWWF and then Vern Gagne, AWA. So you had places to go, which was fantastic. And yeah, it takes a special breed for you to be able to travel like that. For instance, every Monday night in Florida was West Palm Beach, which was a 200-mile trip there, 200 miles back, plus you're at the arena for 4 hours. And, working hard. Every Tuesday night was Tampa. And we were all based out of Tampa. That's where the office was. The Florida Championship Wrestling office was in Tampa. We would tape TV. And, of course, the famous Armory every Tuesday night. Every Wednesday was Miami, 250 down, 250 back. Then every Thursday night was Jacksonville, 200 miles up, 200 miles back. Then Friday was usually a spot show, so it was Saturday, and then Sunday was Orlando. And it would repeat itself, and there was no days off. We were working 355 days a year or more. So, yeah, it takes a special talent. I mean, it's hard. It's really tough, but once you get going and you're used to it, it gets easy, because that's what you do.
Did you have specific people that you traveled with during that time, or?
Absolutely. But you got to remember, I wouldn't leave. I was stationed in Florida. Now, the wrestlers would come in for a period of time, and then they would leave. But I would, they'd be there for a long time. So I used to ride a lot with Captain Sullivan, Angela Mosca, Sir Oliver Humperdinck. And then, if they left, then we would fit somebody in there, Dick the Snake Roberts, Jimmy Garvin. It just changed. Not all the time, but, 6 months to a year, that was about your time period. Then the guys would go to a different territory.
Now, when you started out and you got your break and you were refereeing, were there people that were upset about you being a referee, or were they glad that you were there because you really took it seriously?
No, they were actually glad I was there. And at the end of the week, when I started on that Tuesday, at the end of the week, when Jerry Briscoe said, "We'd like to hire you, you interested?" Of course, I said yes. They had filtered me out. They had looked at me all week, and I was really good. I had known the business already because I was a big fan for years, but I didn't know all the inner workings of it. I didn't know all the lingo, but my time in Texas for the 6 months, I got to learn a lot. But I was such a natural that either, let me give you, for instance, Lex Luger. he's a wrestler, right?
Absolutely.
And he's beautiful. What a body. I mean, it was phenomenal, but it wasn't a natural. It was very hard for him in the ring. You know, he wasn't a spectacular worker. The same with Giant Gonzalez. He was so big, you know, he didn't have the psychology. And it just, but, so even if you train for 2 years, 5 years on the road, and you're not a natural, it's still hard for you to take a backdrop. It's still hard for you to do things which looks fantastic. You know what I mean? Some matches are great. You can tell when somebody's not a great worker. But, you know, Luger had that fantastic body, and they gave him a big push, but he wasn't that great of a worker. So thank God he was a good-looking kid and had a good body. But, yeah, I would say I was a natural. And the people in Florida, the office, Eddie Graham owned the company, and Dusty was the booker, Jerry Briscoe, and Jack, they all liked me. I was a likable guy, I guess, because I've had a job so long. If you're not liked in this business, you don't last long.
You've mentioned basically just a who's who of professional wrestlers and professional wrestler talent. You've worked with Eddie Graham, you said the Funks and Briscoes and Dusty Rhodes. People who are listening today, a lot of them may be familiar with all those, but for people who aren't familiar with them, can you give us any stories of, you know, some of the things you learned from these people during that time in Florida?
Well, Dusty was the booker. He was the boss. And he was very, he had his ways. And so here's a story about Dusty. That I did make. You don't make the same mistake twice. If you do, it's your fault, and you may not have a job. You know, you can make a mistake 2 or 3 times. We're only human, but there's people that take your place. You don't want to make any mistakes. So I came we're driving to Orlando, and we had to be there at 7 o'clock. The matches started at 8. They give you plenty of time to get dressed, and as the referee, I had many different things that I had to do, like make sure all the guys were there. And back then, the bad guys, the heels and the baby faces, wouldn't get dressed together. So as a referee, I had to go to the booker, sit down with him, and he'd give me the list of the matches. I mean, the matches were already done way in advance, but give me a list of the matches for that night, give me all the finishes, give me things that he wanted to do during the match. And then I would have to carry him over to the other dressing room because they had no communication. There was no cell phones back then. They couldn't talk. So it was the referee's obligation and my job to do that. So, and Dusty wanted us there at 7 o'clock, not 8, not 7:30. He was very punctual. And so I got there I would get there at 7. I'd sit down with Dusty, but it just took a little while for me to get really good and to be able to remember all these things. But not long. I was a natural, like I said, and I was really good at it, and I adapted really quick. If I didn't, I wouldn't have a job. So I'd get there at 7. Dusty would give me all the finishes. I'd go over to the heels and give them their finish. By 7:15, I was done. And I had 45 minutes to get dressed and so on and so on. And there was always 2 referees, but I was the main referee. So one time I got there at 7:15. And Dusty he said, Fonzie, it's 7:15. I said, sorry, Dusty, the line to get in here, the traffic was bad. The place is sold out. And he said, hey, leave an hour early. I don't want you to be late again. And I was never late again. I'd rather be an hour early than 5 minutes late, especially with Dusty, especially anywhere with Vince McMahon. You don't want to be late. You know what I mean? You don't want to be late to your plane at the airport. You miss your freaking flight. So, that taught me a lot. So in life, it worked out. I'm always early. Rather be early than late.
Well, that's great advice for anybody listening as well who are breaking into the business. But you just mentioned WWF, WWF, Vince McMahon. We're based out of the Northeast, and obviously that's where WWF, WWE now is based out of as well. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got involved with the WWF back then?
Well, let me lead up to it because I was in WCW, the Florida Championship Wrestling had all the territories were kind of folding because cable was taken off. The Superstation, Channel 17, TBS, Vince went nationwide, with his cable system, and all the little territories were folding up. Thank God I was well liked, and Dusty took with me to WCW in Atlanta and worked for Ted Turner, made tremendous money and had a good run there. But Dusty had left. I was there a few years. Dusty had left the territory, went somewhere else. I forget where he went. But there was a new guy that was like the CEO of WCW. They brought him in. His name was Jim Hurd. He was like a CEO of a Pizza Hut chain or some big company. He was a real big shot at, a big, big Pizza Hut chain. Not two Pizza Huts. I mean, he was in charge of every Pizza Hut in the freaking nation. You know what I mean? He was the guy. So he was good with money and all that. So they brought him in to shave some of the big deficit, the big expense. And Ted Turner owns CNN, owns the Hawks, owns the Brave, owns Pete Street, owns half of Atlanta, multi-billionaire. But who likes to spend $60 million a year when you can spend 55? You know what I mean? So they brought Jim Hurd in to take a pay cut. I mean, to try to, shave some of the big expenses off. So he came to me, and I was Giant Gonzalez's personal assistant for 3 years. So they wanted me and the Giant and a few other people to take a pay cut. So, say the Giant was making $200 a year for the first year. Second year he was going to make $300. The fourth year he was going to make $400 a year. And say I was making $100. It was going to go up to $1.25 and $1.50, so on and so on. So they say, hey, Fonzie and the Giant, we want you to take a pay cut because that's what we're going to do. And the Giant didn't want to take a pay cut. Who wants to take a pay cut? We already had signed a contract for that big money.
Absolutely.
So the Giant was kind of frazzled. He said, Fonzie, what are we going to do? He said, I don't want to take a pay cut. I said, me either. But, we may not have a job if we don't. He says, do you know anybody in WWF? I said, I certainly do. I said, I know J.J. Dillon. He's Vince McMahon's personal assistant, and he's one of the big bosses there. I can give him a call and tell him what's going on. He said, why don't you do that? And we were at my house in Florida because the Giant had to have a little foot surgery, so we were in Tampa for like 10 days so he can recoup. And he said, Fonzie, I can go to Japan and work, 10 weeks a year in Japan and be happy. Or I can go back and play basketball, or the European basketball, or maybe, we can go to WWF. So I said, well, let me give JJ a call. So I called JJ. I hadn't seen JJ in a while, maybe a year or whatever, but, I've worked with JJ for years in Florida. It was Dusty's assistant booker for a long time. So I called the WWF office at the time. I said, hey, J.J. Dillon, please, so there's a sales Fonzie. So J.J. gets on the phone, hey, Fonzie, how you doing? I said, about my family, something brief for a minute. He said, hey, what can I do for you? And I said, well, here's the situation. This is what I told you. I said, Jim Hurd's a new guy, the new CEO of WCW. He wants to take a pay cut. The Giant doesn't want to. Our options are European basketball, maybe go to Japan, or come to you guys. And we're a package deal. I said, you got to have a personal assistant. He doesn't drive. He doesn't do this. He doesn't do that. I've been with him 2 years already. And he says, I understand, Fonzie. He says, well, let me run it by Vince and see if he's interested in you guys. And I said, okay, JJ, thank you so much. And we, said our goodbyes and hung up. And I said, Giant, I made my spiel to JJ, but, he's going to call us back one day, maybe, maybe not. You know how that goes. 20 minutes later, he calls me back and says, Fonzie, Vince is definitely interested. When can you guys come up? He wants to talk to you guys. I said, well, we're at my house. Giant's got a little foot surgery, so we can come up anytime. He said, okay, I'll have you 2 round trip tickets, e-tickets tomorrow. So I said, well, the Giant's got to go first class because he's 8 foot tall, and I'll go coach. He said, oh, we'll put you both in first. I said, oh, thank you. So we went up the next day. Giant was excited, and so was I. I've never met Vince. You know what I mean? I'm a Southern guy by nature of work because I worked in Florida, worked for WCW, and, I never met Vince. So we fly up, we get off the plane. Everybody looks at the Giant. He's 8 foot tall. You know what I mean? He's a wonder. If you don't know who he is, you say, damn, he was the tallest athlete on the planet for those few years that he was in wrestling. Nobody was taller than him. Now I think the kid in Houston, the basketball player, what's his name, Ming or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. He played a little bit of ball in Houston. He's about as tall as Dang Gonzalez. But anyway, we'd get looks everywhere we go. So we get off the plane, and there's Spike Lee at the airport. We do a double knockout with Spike Lee. And the Spike Lee just looks at, Spike's at all the basketball games. You see him all the time on TV in New York.
Yeah.
He was amazed at the Giant. He said he's never seen nobody that big before me, before the kid in Houston, the basketball player. He said, man, who is that guy? I said, well, we're wrestler guys. I'm a referee. And he gave me his card and wanted me to call him later, but we couldn't do that because we were under contract. You know what I mean? But anyway, so we go to Vince's house. Vince isn't there. J.J. Dillon meets us. Instead of going to the office, the limo picks us up. It takes us right to Vince's multi-million-dollar home in Connecticut. We flew into LaGuardia. And J.J. Dillon answers the door, and he says, hey, Vince is running a few minutes late, but come on in, make yourself comfortable. We got some drinks and some food ready for you guys. And so we start bullshitting, and 20 minutes later, in comes Vince with his beautiful suit on and his tennis shoes and not a hair out of place. Hey, guys. He's big shot. And he's real loud, and he's the guy. He's the man. So he walks in, introduces himself. He says, oh, I know you. You're athletic. I've seen you on TV before. I said, thank you, Mr. Sanders. He said, oh, call me Vince. And then he went to the Giants, and we started talking and that. He said, well, what's the deal? I told him, Jim Hurd wants to take a pay cut. He says, well, I'm definitely interested, and I want to hire you guys. And Giant says to Vince, he says, well, they still owe me a big check. I haven't collected it, $60,000. And Vince says, don't even go back to WCW. Don't even go back to Atlanta. JJ, write him a check for $60,000. That's a signing bonus.
Wow.
Great. So, and the Giant says, hey, Vince, I haven't been home in 3 years for Christmas. This is like November, I haven't been home for 3 years. He says, can I start sometime in January? And Vince says, of course. That'd give me plenty of time to think of your gimmick and all that. Which, he put that Dang Gonzalez thing on him, the hair suit and all that. So he says, Fonzie, do you want to start in January too? I said, no, sir. I said, I live in Florida. He lives in Argentina. I can start anytime. He said, JJ, add him on to the booking sheet. So JJ adds me on. I get a full-time job. I'm going to work and get acclimated until the Giant comes in January, so I'll be acclimated to the company and everything. And JJ starts writing my schedule down. He puts MSG. I said, JJ, what the fuck is MSG? Never heard of that. He said, Fonzie, that's Madison Square Garden. I said, kidding me? Okay, thank you. So we were there for, we missed WrestleMania 8. We did WrestleMania 9, and then we missed WrestleMania. We left right before WrestleMania 10, which I think was in Madison Square, but had a tremendous run there. It was fantastic, made fantastic money. Vince liked me a lot, so that's how we get to WWF.
Well, as I mentioned, we're up in the Northeast. We're based out of Poughkeepsie, New York,
Yeah, Poughkeepsie. I've ran that show, that building many times with ECW.
Yes, and I was just wondering, just off the top of your head, if you had any specific Poughkeepsie memories.
Well, we knocked out we did a pay-per-view there, I loved Poughkeepsie. There was we'd get there. We had a big pay-per-view. ECW had a pay-per-view. It was RVD against Jerry Lynn, and they were having spectacular matches. I mean, like classic matches. They were just perfect together. And so, at the pay-per-view, they want you there early, so we, 1 o'clock, they got catered food. They don't want you to leave the building and so on. But anyway, I went to walk around downtown Poughkeepsie a little bit and found this little deli and hung out with this fat blonde girl who was beautiful, just a little heavy on the bottom, which I like. But we became good friends. I love Poughkeepsie. It was a good venue for us, good for ECW. And I think I might have went there with Vince, too, maybe for a TV or something. But Poughkeepsie was always good for us. And so that night on the pay-per-view, Van Dam gave Jerry Lynn that Terminator and knocked him out cold. I said, oh, my God, what do we do now? It's like only 10 minutes into the match, and they want 30 minutes. And so we had to revive Jerry Lynn. And somehow I forgot how we did it, but we did it, and we carried on with the match. So that was a crazy night for, where we thought actually, I thought Van Dam killed him, because when he gave him that move, the kid went down. I mean, not a kid, but, Jerry Lynn went down, and he wasn't moving at all. And I went right over to him. And I always had a bottle of water with me to feed my guy, Van Dam. But I was giving him water, pouring water on his face and head. He wasn't moving. And I couldn't tell because we were all hyped up, sweaty, and, the adrenaline was flowing. But I thought we killed Jerry Lynn in Poughkeepsie. But eventually he came to. Scary 5 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. ECW is made a permanent mark on not only the history of professional wrestling, but really the history of pop culture. And, stuff still comes out about it nowadays. And, it really influenced a lot of things, the Attitude Era of WWE and so on and so forth. But, you were a major part of ECW. And, we just jumped forward a little bit. But how did you get your start with ECW?
Well, I was friends with Paul Heyman. Well, eventually in Florida Championship Wrestling, I became a really well-known referee. I became a really well-known office guy. They took me into the office. So I was part of the office after a while. Not the first couple of years, but, I had to earn my keep. And I got to be very good and was writing TVs and working with Dusty hand in hand. I mean, every TV I was sitting there with J.J. Dillon and Dusty and, do all my stuff. And I became pretty well known. So I was assistant booker. And this wrestler came down to Florida, and his name was Tombstone. He was out of Baltimore. Real nice body. And this kid came with him who I'd never met. And it was Paul Heyman. And Paul was going to ride with Tombstone for 6 months while Tombstone was there. And just kind of like me in Houston, in Texas, trying to get a job, doing whatever. I think he was a photographer or whatever, but he didn't take pictures when he came to Florida. But he was just a friend of Tombstone's, a wrestler, and was going to ride around with him for the 6 months, just like I did in Florida, in Texas. And so we got to know Paul. He's a nice guy. He'd get help around the ring, or he'd do some stuff. We could pay him, or he didn't have a job, but he was just there. With his wrestling buddy. So Tombstone was getting ready to leave, say August 25th. So and you get it 2 weeks. It was all scheduled and all sanctioned by the wrestling office. They were going to send him back to Baltimore or wherever he was going to go. And Paul Heyman came up to me because I was Dusty's assistant booker. So Paul comes up to me, says, Fonzie, Tombstone's leaving in 2 weeks. He says, do you think I can go to the ring with him and be his manager the last 2 weeks? I've been here for 4 or 5 months, and I've done everything you guys asked, got Cokes, help with whatever I've done. I said, Paul, you're a great guy. We love you. You're super nice. But you got a pair of Levi's. You've been dressing with a pair of Levi's with holes in them. You got a stank pair of Converse, and you wear T-shirts. I says, that's all. You can't go to the ring like. I said, can you get a suit? You got money to get a suit? I didn't know his father was mega attorney and lived in the most expensive real estate on the planet, Scarsdale, New York. You know what I mean? I didn't know he was wealthy. He says, "Oh, I can get a suit. You know, that's okay. Come with a suit, and we'll let you go to the ring with Tombstone." And Tombstone was working with Scott Hall, not Razor Ramon. It's Scott Hall at the time. So Scott Hall would press slam, beat the guy every night because he was leaving, and he would press slam Paul Heyman at the end and all. But Paul Heyman came to all dressed up in a suit. He looked beautiful, and he came with a freaking gimmick cell phone, not a cell phone, but like a cordless phone for the house. You know, so that was his gimmick. He was like Paul Heyman with his, a gimmick phone, and so in a nice suit. And so he thanked me when he left. He said, "Oh, thank you so much for letting me come to the ring. I'll never forget to thank Swansea." I said, "Oh, you did a great job. Thanks." So the next thing I see, we all stay in touch. He's a big star in AWA. He becomes a big manager. Then, I see him in Atlanta. We both are working for Ted Turner. He's managing Paulie Dangerously, managing all these guys, Rick Rude, and a bunch of people. So we hit it. I said, "Man, great. We became friends." So to get to ECW, so I was in WCW. The Giant had finished up and went back to Argentina because his health started to fail. He's diabetic. Giants don't live long anyway. Andre, God bless him, died at the age of 43, and the Giant died at the age of 40-something, 46 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So he was getting sick, and he couldn't handle the road no more, so he went home. He made plenty of money, made a lot of money, and that money was like twice as much in Argentina,
Mm-hmm.
So he went home, and I stayed at WWF. So finally, in '94, whatever it was, wrestling in general was taking a little dive in their attendance. Vince came up to me and says, "Unfortunately, the business is down. It's down 20% or whatever. We're going to shave our expense, and we're going to have to let you go. But, Fonzie, we love you. You're a hell of a referee. We think a lot about you. When we come to Florida, you can work all the Florida shows, and when business picks back up, you jump right back into your position." I said, "Thank you." And he gave me a beautiful umbrella, like a severance pay, which was very nice. And I said, "Wow." So I go home to Florida. I get my notice, and I go home to Florida. And now I haven't been off. I worked full time for, 12, 15 years or something. It was crazy without any time off. Just, a week here, or, a week there, but you don't have time off in wrestling because somebody will take your place.
Yeah,
The money's so good. The money's so good that you can't afford to take time off because, you're going to lose your job possibly. But, you get some time off, but they don't kill you. But actually they do. They beat you up on the road. It's tremendously hard, especially working for WWE and WCW. You're nationwide. So I go home and I'm happy as shit. I'm home like a month, maybe 2 months. I'm on the tractor. I got 5 acres. I got orange trees. I'm happy as fuck. My house is paid for. I got a little money in the bank. This is the first time I've had off in I've been off a week or two here and there, but no off for a month or two. You know what I mean? So I didn't know what to do with myself. I said, "My God, this is great." So I'm home driving my tractor and the phone rings. It's Paul Heyman. I haven't talked to Paul in a while because he stayed in WCW and I was in WWF. So I said, "Hey, Paul." He said, "Oh, fine. How you doing? I heard you left WWF." And I said, "Yeah, man, I'm so happy I'm home." And God, he said, "Well, you want to do something? I have this company, ECW." I said, "ECW? What the fuck's an ECW?" Because I had never worked for an indie show in my life. Florida Championship Wrestling, WCW, WWF, all Japan, so he says, "Well, this little company we're starting, and since you just left WWF, I have this little angle I want you to do, and you come in for 4 weeks. We'll pay you well. We'll fly you in and out, and be doing me a favor. I said, okay, sounds good. I was still on Monday Night TV because they tape. Back then, they would do one live show and then 2 weeks of taping, and they would show those one live show. So next Monday would be a tape show. The following Monday would be a tape show. So I was still on TV when they brought me to ECW. The people kind of knew who I was because they're all smart marks in ECW. Basically, you know, they know wrestling like, you know, Henry Ford knows his cars. So, you know, I come in there and Paul Heyman says, look, I want you to come in with your blue shirt, your bow tie, you're fresh off of WWF. He says that's family entertainment. They want the doctor, his wife, and his 2 kids sitting at ringside. They don't want 25, 27-year-old kids sitting at ring. You know what I mean? We're hardcore. We're blood and guts and sex and violence and drugs and rock and roll. He says, I said, what do you want me to do? He says, I want you to be anti-violent, and you are affiliated with the Athletic Commission of Pennsylvania, which I kind of was a little bit. I had my license, you know. You got to get certified to be a referee in certain states, New York, Pennsylvania, so on. So I would go in. Shane Douglas brought me in, you know, to, wrestling-wise, and he brought me in and said, hey, this is a conservative referee. And Shane was a wrestler. He wasn't about the violence and going through tables and all juiced up and barbed wire and all that bullshit. So Shane brought me in to kind of take care of his matches and do. So anyway, the people hated me because I was interrupting their violence. So a particular match was Ian Rotten and Axel Rotten had a feud going. They had been working this angle for months. They would have a tie-pay death match where the hands are taped. They dip their hands in glue, then dip them in some type of broken glass. Then they have a match. So these people have been waiting for this match. The bell rings. I'm the special referee. The people know something's up. So one of the guys hit the other, and there was a little bit of juice. I mean, like a trickle of blood by his forehead and by his eye. I stopped the match 3 minutes into the match. Say, due to the lack of vision, because the blood, I'm stopping this match. No contest. And the people wanted to freaking kill me. They were legitimately waiting for this match. They know it's a work, but they want to see the work. They want to see the action. They want to see the blood and guts and tables. So when I stopped the match, they said, oh, my God. And 911 was supposed to choke slam me because that's what all he did, wrestling in 911. And then I was supposed to leave the territory. But anyway, to get to how I got there is that's how I got there. But the angle got over so good, and I guess I did my role, I did my thing, because I was a legitimate referee. People knew I was been around for a long time, and they fucking hated me. So that's when Paul said, well, Fonzie, we want to put you with Taz and make you a manager, and so on, and they offered me some decent money, you know, and you only work Friday and Saturday. I said, damn, how sweet is that? And so we worked out, and I went with Taz from refereeing to Taz. Then I went to the first pay-per-view and turned on Taz after a year and went with Van Dam and Sabu, and I was there 5 years with a top spot the whole 5 years.
Absolutely, and you kind of mentioned it a little bit just then. You you made an amazing transition from referee to manager and then ultimately to performer. And you know, I watched a little bit of some of your interviews and stuff before talking to you today, and I think it's not always said. What's not always said about you is how good you were at inciting the fans and really getting them all riled up. But what was that transition like with you from referee to manager to performer? Like you had said that you wanted to wrestle growing up, but you knew you were 155 pounds. But was that like one of your favorite things to do in your wrestling career was actually get to wrestle?
Well, it happened all so fast. The transition, they kept transitioning from come in for 4 weeks and be a special referee and stop the violence. Then they hooked me up with Taz right away after the 4 weeks, and boom, boom, boom. Fuck, it happened so fast, I didn't have time to think about it. So I wasn't saying, oh my God, I'm going to be a manager. I had already been in the business 15 or 18, whatever. I started in 1978, full time in 1980, so I had been around a long time. This was May of 95 again. I started in Florida, May 1980, then May of 95, I was in ECW. So the transition happened so fast, I didn't have time to think. But I did have a little trouble. The only trouble I had was doing interviews. You know, Paulie was meticulous about the interviews. I was doing like 10 takes. You know, I couldn't say, hey, next Tuesday night or in Poughkeepsie, my man Taz is going to kick Sabu's ass, and so on and so on. So I kept having to do them over and over. Finally, this only happened for a short time, but Tommy Dreamer came up to me and says, Fonzie, I want you to treat it like a shoot, like it's real. I said, what? He says, yeah, you're going to go to Poughkeepsie, and you guys are going to wrestle Taz. I mean, you and Taz are going to wrestle Sabu. He says, just say what's going to happen, you know. I said, okay, let me try it again. So and I said, Saturday night, Daddy, we're in Poughkeepsie, and I hate Poughkeepsie because I like Poughkeepsie, and I hate Poughkeepsie, and Sabu, we're gonna kick your ass, blah, blah, blah. So I just said what was true. We're gonna go to Poughkeepsie. I didn't particularly care. Let's use Newark instead of Poughkeepsie, because Newark's a dirty town. You know what I mean? Not
Yeah,
one
absolutely.
of my favorite cities. You know, the smokestack. You drive by the airport on the interstate, and it sucks. You won't want to live there, right?
Yeah.
So I would say, hey, in Newark, New Jersey, Daddy, it stinks. There's trouble, bad prostitutes. That's the only thing I like about it is the strip clubs, Daddy. You know, so I started doing one take. They started calling me soon after Tommy told me to treat it like a shoot, to say exactly what's going to happen. And then they called me One Take Fonzie, and I've been One Take Fonzie for, since 95.
That's incredible. And you mentioned, you had such a long career in professional wrestling and still doing stuff today. What do you consider like some of your best career highlights in the business?
Well, ECW for sure. I really enjoyed building that company, help being a part of that company. I was instrumental after I was there for a while. Paul Heyman let me, help him in the office. Tommy Dreamer was his right-hand man. I would say I was his third man, you know what I mean, or whatever. But he let me, start directing and help him with the young guys. I had a lot of respect. When I walked into the dressing room in ECW, when Paul Heyman brought me in for that first 2 weeks, I didn't know one guy in the dressing room. There was Mikey Whipwreck, Sandman, Tommy Dreamer, Taz, Sabu, all these guys. And who the fuck are these guys? I've never seen them. They were nobody, but they were stars in ECW because Paul Heyman built them, but they didn't have any type of reputation. But they all knew me from, I had been in the business already my whole, for a long time. So these guys treated me with respect tremendously. So I was well-liked, and I loved the company, and I was a part of, the first pay-per-view, and I did 21 pay-per-views, and I was helped Paulie with every one of them, which was great. Paul Heyman paid me really good. Another good thing, another peak in what I consider a highlight was walking in Madison Square Gardens for the first time, which, I've been there, a dozen times or so, but first time was unique. Getting a chance to travel, like overseas, like to Japan. I've been to Japan 13 times. That was phenomenal. They brought me over to do the 91 to do the Ric Flair Fujinami match, 65,000 people, just one match, and, spectacular. I like that. I like going to Europe, working with Hogan and Yokozuna, stuff like that. Big thing for me was after I became a veteran after so many years, and what I liked was helping the young guys because a lot of guys took me under the wing, like Bobo Brazil, Jack and Jerry Briscoe, of course, Dusty, like a father to me. In fact, I told Dusty after a while, I said, Dusty, I wish you were my father. Because my father had passed away. And he said, I am your father's son. So I love that. That was a highlight of my career. Being involved, being on TV all the time, making my family, making money was a really nice thing. That was a really good experience because, I didn't come from a poor family, but, we weren't Paul Heyman money like his father, big time lawyer. My father was a school teacher and worked for the government and so on and so on. But, we did well, middle class, but so I was making more money than anybody in my family ever. I was making six figures, which is fucking fantastic, brother. My first 6 figures. Oh, I got paid my first check in WCW when Dusty brought me in. My check was so fucking big, brother. For me, it was big. Not for you, it may not be that big. With Dusty, it may not be that big. For Vince McMahon, it may not be. But for me, to get like a $8,000 check, I said, so I didn't cash it. I took it to Dusty. I said, Dusty, I think they made a mistake. They paid me, look at this, it's $8,000. They paid me too much. He started laughing. He said, I'm going to make way more than that we used to. I said, wow, are you kidding me? So that was a highlight of my career, getting a big check. And doing special matches and being really good at my craft and being called out to do special matches and world-renowned for being a spectacular referee and being an office guy and helping guys. Like when I do these conventions, like not too long ago, I seen a wrestler. His name is Adrian Street.
Mm-hmm.
And I hadn't seen him since the 80s. So this was, I'd seen him 5 years ago at a convention or something. He went up to me and says, Fonzie, oh my God, he hugged and kissed me and says, Fonzie, if it wasn't for you, I would have never made it to the Florida territory because he couldn't remember some things that I used to tell him what to do in the ring. Say, oh, you can do this, do that. So I got him through a lot of matches. And I got through a lot of guys like that. Ed the Bull Gantner, many guys, Luger, many guys that I've got through. That was a highlight to pay it back and be, get a pat on the back for being great at my craft. That was spectacular. When Vince McMahon said, oh, I've seen you, you're athletic, I really like you, and, oh, good for you. And that was a big, meaningful moment when the most powerful wrestling personality on the planet, there's nobody bigger than Vince, is there?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. For the biggest guy in professional wrestling to put me over, said I do a great job. That would want to make me work harder. For instance, we were in, I think, Green Bay, Wisconsin. We were doing the TV. And so we were going to do a pull-apart with Tatanka and Bam Bam Bigelow in the dressing room area, the hallway. Nobody could see her. This is pre-taped. Then they show it during the show. So the angle was they were going to do a big angle and wrestle each other for a few months. So they were going to do walk in the hallway and spot each other and start fighting, and then all the referees come pull them apart. That's commonly done, right? Done all the time. So I didn't want to, there's all the referees, and I told Bam I wanted to do something a little more because I like to, not to show off, but I like to be good at what I do and, come up with things on my own. So I said, Bam Bam, you see that trash can over there that's about 30 feet away or whatever, 10, 15, 20 feet away? Yeah. I said, when we do the pull apart, usually the referees would get pushed around and then finally 4 referees would grab somebody by the waist and pull them apart. So I'm a little small guy and I shouldn't be able to touch Bam Bam Bigelow. So when I ran up to Bam Bam, I said, Bam Bam, you get me and throw me into that trash can in the air like an airplane. And I'll hit the trash can, take a bump, make you look good. He said, okay, Fonzie, you sure? I said, yeah. So here goes the angle. There's 2 cameras. Vince is standing there watching the angle. He's directing several agents, Renee Goulet and Tony Garea and Pat Patton, they're all there watching. So, because this is important shit, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, I did the first Monday Night Raw. We'll get to that in a minute. But, so here comes the pull apart. The two wrestlers lock up and they're fighting each other. You give them 10 seconds and then here come all the referees. He pushes off the referee. Bam Bam pushes one off. Tatanka pushes one off. I come in. Bam Bam grabs me and throws me through the air like a freaking bullet. And I fly and hit the trash can. It looks spectacular. It's spectacular. I didn't get a scratch on me. I don't know how it happened, but I was really good at doing shit like that. So after cut, that's a wrap. Vince came up to me and says, Fonzie, that was a great bump. Thank you. So that made me feel good. Another thing that made me feel good was the first night at the Manhattan Center for the first Monday Night Raw ever. So I hadn't been in New York too many times. I worked at one Madison Square Gardens. We're doing this big thing. Nobody knew that Monday Night Raw was going to be the most longest running episode of TV thing consistently in the history of TV or whatever. You know, it's a big thing.
Yeah.
So with the first one, you know, it's a test or whatever, and Vince is, you know, putting it together. I don't know too much. But anyway, I know it's going to be a big deal. So I want to look good for multiple reasons. One reason, if I dress nice, and if I go to a Marriott and walk in and I got a pair of jeans on and nice shoes and a T-shirt, I walk up to the desk and say, "Oh, excuse me, William Alfonso, get a reservation." Okay, we'll be right with you. But if I walk in and I got a beautiful suit, I got a Louis Vuitton bag, and I'm wearing a Samaritan Rolex, they say, "Oh, Mr. Alfonso, we've been expecting you. How can we help you?" You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Appearance and presentation is everything. Goes a long way in life. So anyway, first Monday Night Raw come. So I said, let me dress beautiful. So I got a nice suit, got my Samaritan Rolex on, with, you know, about 2,000, 3,000 back then. But I was making 120, so, you know, I could afford one. I've got nice luggage. I walk in, and remember the Zuba pants?
Yes.
Everybody was wearing those on the road, and jeans and T-shirts, and, you know, so I walk in, I got a beautiful fucking designer suit on, fucking $1,000 suit. Didn't have many of them, but I had a couple. I looked fucking spectacular. My hair was cut beautiful. And I walk in, and Vince is at the ring. You know, there's a couple guys working out in the ring. It's like 1 o'clock. And Vince goes, "Fonzie, come here." And he says, "Oh, you look great, Fonzie." Oh, and he calls Earl Hebner, Dave Hebner, Joey Morella, Mike Quinones, all the referees. So all you referees, come over here. So all the referees come to Vince. We're all at ringside, guys working out in the ring. And he says, "Hey, you guys see how Fonzie's dressed? That's how I want you to dress from now on the road for any event, pay-per-views, any TVs, any big events. You dress just like that." So I said, "Oh, that's good." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I had heat with all the referees. Like, "Fonzie, why you dress like that? Now we got to dress like that, you motherfucker." They were all mad at me for it, you know what I mean? But I didn't give a fuck. Dressing nice. You should dress nice. You're representing a multi-billion-dollar company. You're on TV. And plus, when I walk into a room, I'm walking through the airport, and I'm looking fucking sharp, got a $1,000 suit, and look fucking great. Who is that guy? They don't know I'm a referee. They don't know I'm not Hulk Hogan. I don't have blonde hair. I'm not 230, big arms, you know. So they say, he's somebody. I wonder, he's so well dressed. He looks so good. Damn, he's got to be something. That's not an ordinary guy, you know what I mean? So I like that. It's got me in a lot of doors.
Yeah, yeah. Now, you mentioned that you're down in Florida, and but we on the Northeast, we're actually going to get to see you shortly, and you're being brought up by Eric Sims of ESS Promotions on September 21st. You're going to be at Legends of the Ring, and then on September 22nd, you're going to be at the Wrestling Universe. Is there anything that you want to tell your fans, the people that are coming out to see you, anything that you want them to know before they come and see you?
Yeah, of course I do, Daddy. Well, here's the deal. I have been off for a few years. I took some years off because I was burned out on the road. And I said, well, you know what I mean? So, you haven't seen me in the Northeast on too many shows, have you?
No, not really.
You haven't seen me at any indie shows. You don't see me at hardly. I think I might have done one or two conventions in the Northeast. I did WrestleMania up there a while back.
Yep.
The convention, it was a while back with me and Van Dam, and maybe one more at the ECW Arena when Tommy did a show there, the House of Hardcore. So I've been up there a couple of times in the last 5 or 8 years. So it's good that I haven't been up there. So now that people haven't seen me in so long, ECW had like a cult following. You know what I mean? So anybody who's affiliated with ECW automatically tagged in, and especially me, because I had a pretty dominant spot with Van Dam and Sabu and Taz. I had a really good spot. It was in some really good matches. You remember the match that I had where I beat Beulah's ass?
Oh, I remember. That's also the one where you lost 1/3 of your blood.
They had to rush me to the hospital. If I didn't lose all that blood, if it wasn't a spectacular, bloody, hell of a 7-minute match, we wouldn't be talking about it today. It would just be a little something that happened, you know what I mean? But since I almost bled to death, I had to get rushed to the hospital and lost feeling in my head and 27 stitches and so on and so on. So anyway, I have been in the Northeast. When I was with WCW, we worked everywhere but Madison Square Gardens. When I was in WWF, we worked everywhere in the Northeast, including Madison Square Gardens. When I was in ECW, we worked everywhere but Madison Square Garden. We worked all the smaller venues all through the Northeast. So what I'm saying is I've met a lot of fantastic, very cool, I'm not going to say wrestling fans, people in my travels when I was working for those 3 companies in the Northeast, from Philly to New Jersey to New York. Just a lot of great people, and I got a lot of love from those people. Now since I've started back a little bit and got on social media, immediately when I joined social media, I wasn't on social media until just 5 months ago. I wanted to avoid it. I didn't want to. It's not that I didn't like wrestling, because I love professional wrestling. I love the sports entertainment business. It's been very good to me, Daddy. I mean, really good to me. But I just got burned out, so I needed some time. But now I'm back in it. As soon as I joined social media, got a Facebook and Instagram, like the first week, I got 5,000 people following me, which is tremendous. You know what I mean? So it's just growing and growing. So what I'm saying is, you guys haven't seen me for a long time, and those states, Philly and New Jersey and Pennsylvania and New York, have been so good to me. So good to me. Spectacular people. I've been in some spectacular situations up there. I love you guys so much. Please, if you come to the event, I'm working several little events there. I think I'm coming in on the 20th, and I'm working some little indie shows around New York, New Jersey and stuff. It's on Eric's website, and it's on mine too. I posted on my social media, on Instagram and my Facebook. It's all the information's on there about these few shows. Please, if you do attend these shows, please come up to me and say hello and let me thank you guys for being a part of your lives. Now, I've been doing shows all in Ohio for a company in the last couple of months, for a company called AIW.
That's the Absolute Intense Wrestling, correct?
Absolutely. And they remind me of a young ECW. They're getting started. You know what I mean? It's hardcore. They got some all young guys that didn't know one of them by name. You know what I mean? Guys I've never seen before. It's like Paul Heyman creating all new stars again. Like I said, Taz and Sandman and Tommy Dreamer and Mikey Whipwreck and all these guys. Who the fuck are those guys? Now they're big names, but before, I didn't know them. But I've been working in. So my point is, working with and they put me with the RVD of AIW. His name is Matthew Justice. He's really tough. Oh my God, he's hardcore. He's beautiful. Got a great body. His two favorite wrestlers, what got him into professional wrestling, were Van Dam and Sabu. So imagine how excited we were to meet each other. And he's on top. So it's like they're bringing me in to put me right with the top guy and paying me really good for indie company. So, so my point is, the people, the boys, all the wrestlers treat me like a superstar. The promoter treats me like John Thorne is like a young Paul Heyman. He's treating me like a superstar. They fly me in, put me at the Marriott, so I can get pay me well. I do my shit, and the people, they're all the fans. A lot of ECW fans, they all come up to me. Oh, Fonzie, thank you. I remember I was 11 years old watching. Now he's 33. You know what I mean? They all got money now. Because when they were young, they watched me, and so now they're all got money. They want to spend it. I was a part of their childhood. Guys from 11 to 20, whatever. But all those people come up to me all the time and put me over like I'm a superstar, call and tell me all these things, and that's just heart. It makes my heart feel good. And I say, hey, we appreciate you coming. I say, well, I appreciate you more. When I sign an autograph or a picture or something, I'm giving more pictures away up there. Now, I won't be giving away too many pictures when I come to the event mid-September, the 20th, 21st, 22nd, because I'm working for a company who's bringing me in. But the AIW, he's bringing 100 pictures with me and gives them out. They can't believe how nice I'm not a nice guy. I'm just a good person. I believe in good karma. So
yeah,
why wouldn't I give a couple of pictures away to somebody who comes up and puts me over like $1 million and been watching me for 25 years? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Cost me 88 cents if I can print a picture. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they like that. They won't forget it.
No.
So my whole point is to the people at the convention coming up, you're going to have some big names in there. So I'm not in competition with them, but when I do these shows with big names like Sting and Cactus Jack and all these big names, I get almost as much attention as they do. It's pretty humbling for me and pretty flattering when they come up to me and treat me like a superstar. Which is very fucking cool, Daddy. So I just want to pay back. Please come up to me and say, hey, I heard you on the podcast the other day. Sit out, chat with me, hang out for a little bit, and we'll take it from there.
Well, we are looking forward to it. We can't wait to come out and see you that weekend. And we know you're very busy. We want to let you go soon. My last question for you is for anybody who's looking into getting into this business and maybe more specifically becoming a referee, what's the most important thing about being a referee?
Be cool just like Fonzie, Daddy, and you have a job for life.
All right. Well, we want to thank you so much. Be sure and look up ESS Promotions, Eric Sims. Follow Bill Alfonso on social media, and come on out and see him in September, the 20th, 21st, and 22nd. Mr. Alfonso, thank you so much for coming on, and we really do appreciate all that you've given for the world of professional wrestling.
Yeah, thanks, Eddie, and I appreciate you having me on and let me plug my shows and stuff. And Eric Sims is a fantastic promoter. He's brought in super big names, and now he's bringing in me, and I'm glad that he's bringing me into New Jersey because it's one of my the Northeast is one of my favorite places. Made a lot of friends, and I love the Northeast. There's always big crowds, and I get a lot of love there. So very cool to be coming back. It's almost like my second home. And even though I talk trash a little bit about Newark, I was only kidding. Actually, I love Newark because they got great strip clubs there, Daddy.
Well, if we can't find you, then we'll know where you're at.